Clydesdale Media Mindset with Phil Mansfield. My name is Scott Schweitzer. His name is Phil Mansfield. How you doing today, Phil?
Very, very well, Scott. Good to be back.
Yeah. So we have an exciting journey to take over the next few weeks. The next few episodes will tie into each other. So this week we're going to start off with self-talk. Tell us about self-talk, Phil.
It's the little voice in the head, isn't it? We have that. I think it's very difficult for scientists to quantify, but we roughly communicate with ourselves 1,000 words every 10 minutes. So your biggest communicator or the biggest influence on yourself is yourself. The person you listen to the most in your life and the person who has the most influence over yourself is yourself. So having a good
understanding. That can be good and bad.
It can be very good. It can be very bad. That's absolutely right. And so how you are communicating with yourself is essentially the most important thing you'll ever do. And it's a cliched saying, but we'll very often say, be careful how you talk to yourself because you're listening. And you are very much listening to your stimuli around you and how that stimuli around you and the environment you create for yourself and the environment you build for yourself. Then as a sort of positive or negative loop, that environment you create for yourself enhances or degrades your self-talk, and then that self-talk becomes your reality, which then creates your environment, and then your environment then influences how you talk to yourself, and so it goes around and around in either direction, unfortunately or fortunately.
Yeah, I know. I'm on a couple journeys of my own, a weight loss journey as well as a fitness journey, and my self-talk, I talk to myself a lot. I find that when my self-talk is positive, I am much more successful.
Yeah. How do you? I know I'm not supposed to be me talking. But I'm going to ask you a question, if that's okay. How do you notice the difference there? Do you have any sort of practical examples of a day where you've spoken really wonderfully to yourself versus a day where you're being a little bit harder on yourself, and the outcome and how it spirals in one direction or another?
So from a weight loss thing, I think it's an easy example. I'm overweight, and if I tell myself you're fat, you're overweight, how did you get to this point? How did you let this happen? That's the negative talk that takes me down a very bad road. And usually then I do things to sabotage myself when I'm talking that way. Right.
Yeah.
If I'm saying, man, you're putting in the work, you're putting in the time, you're making good decisions, you are getting fitter every day, you are losing weight every day, this is a good thing, then that ball keeps rolling like an avalanche.
Yeah. And how quickly do you find you can shift between the two? Can it be a daily basis? Does it go weeks at a time, months at a time? Is there quite a regular shift between the two?
I think the key for me is to get that time down, right? When it's bad, it can be months at a time. I can have a good phase for a while and then a bad phase. The quicker I can switch between the two, the better my success is.
Yeah. And so exactly. So recognizing those triggers and altering the dichotomy, the sort of internal dichotomy is everything there. And the best example I can give people is, I often call it the 4-year-old, and anyone who's ever worked with me will often, I ask you to give your 4-year-old a name, and that 4-year-old is that little terror that's inside you. There's actually some good research on the 4-year-old. He is, or she is, but I say he is because, of course, in me it's a boy. 7 times more powerful than your human conscious. So if you're fighting him, I'm losing every time. And I need to communicate with that 4-year-old like a 4-year-old. So the best example is having a 4-year-old to tidy their room, or having the 4-year-old to come and eat dinner at the table, or having a 4-year-old to not paint the walls. if you think about how you would communicate with that 4-year-old and how you would use that, if you shout at the 4-year-old, don't paint the walls, the most important thing in that 4-year-old's life is to go and paint the walls. That's going to be
Right.
that's going to be their goal, right? And so instead of, it's the art of parenthood is distraction. There's no art. There's no such thing as a good parent. There's just good distractors. And it's the same. It's the same with this sort of internal dialogue that you have. How good are we at recognizing my kid has the paintbrushes in the hand and they're very close to the wall? What do I do now? And my cognitive age, let's just say I have eaten well, I'm well caffeinated, I've slept well, I'm having a wonderful day. I'm in that perfect position to say to the 4-year-old who's about to paint the wall, how about we make popcorn and watch Ice Age, something that was a wonderful distraction, versus I come in, I've got shopping in my hand, I've just dropped the milk on the floor, I haven't had a coffee since 9 o'clock this morning, and my cognitive age is as down with the child at 10, 12 years old, and I scream across the room, if you paint that wall, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. The reaction or the result is very different for the evening. If we take the evening then as my life, I'm going to end up with a child who's crying, upset, mum, dad shouting at me, argument, etc., versus on the other parallel universe, I'm sitting on the couch eating popcorn with my child, watching Ice Age. And how we have communicated with that 4-year-old is obvious in parenting, and every good parent does that every single day. We do both sides, but when it's ourself and it's our own sort of self dichotomy, we don't necessarily appreciate that we have to go through that same process.
So a lot of times people use the analogy of the devil and the angel on the shoulder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or negative self-talk and positive self-talk. How often is that a battle for people? Like they hear both voices and they have to choose which one to listen to.
Yeah, I think the first step in all of this, though, is being conscious over that the angel and the devil is there. I think a lot of the time we live in that subconscious mindset where actually we live on autopilot. So you don't realize you ate the cake at the cafe, and then you had the chips with lunch, and then you had the bread with the afternoon snack until you get home in the evening and someone says to you, how's your diet been today? Or how was your training today? And you don't realize that you've actually on autopilot in a subconscious state. Some of us aren't making conscious decisions from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. We all recognize that. I mean, I'm by no means perfect. There's nights I lay in bed and think, where's the day gone? Was I conscious over any of my decision making today? Did I draw from my core values or my path or the person I would like to be or the business I would like to run or the coach I would like to be? Did I think about, was I present in any of those decisions today? Or have those decisions just rolled off one after the other in a subconscious state, and I've ended up in this position at the end of today? Now, you could argue that there's not a lot of self-talk. You might not be conscious of your self-talk, but you have had that self-talk during the day, and that self-talk hasn't been conscious self-talk, and that then is 100% reliant on the environment you're within. So if you're within an environment where everyone's eating cake, you become susceptible. It's almost like the mind tricks of how Darren Brown gets you to do all the wonderful things. You become completely taken by the environment you're in because your subconscious will just follow the flock.
As a coach, how important is this to understand with your athletes? And can you tell when your athletes go into negative self-talk?
Yeah, I think you can pretty much take any athlete I've ever worked with, and they'll recognize me screaming from the other side of the gym, I hope you're speaking nicely to yourself. It's something I will say, I think every athlete I've ever coached will recognize that. And me saying, I hope you're speaking nicely to yourself, is me reminding them to have self-talk. And it's how you formulate the obstacles in front of you. So when like going back to the example of having the child not painting on the wall, when you see an opportunity to spend time with your child versus an opportunity to discipline your child, you see two very different, one's negative, one's positive. And it's the same here, is having, if I've done my groundwork with my athletes, it won't need much more than a trigger. Sometimes it's just a tap on the shoulder. Sometimes I'll go over and put a hand on them. And that will be enough for me to say to them, hey, I need you to be in your conscious state now. I need you to be present in the moment. And that should be enough for them to rewire their thought processes, or that environmental process we're talking about. I think it's very important that I'll know if I'm programming certain elements, certain fear-based elements. I'm ultra aware of it within athletes. So I'll know when I'm putting them in certain positions, I'll be aware of how their negative, how their self-talk may well drift.
I have an interesting story about this, and it's a friend of yours. Last year during the Open, I was doing the open workout with burpees and deadlifts, I think it was. And Sam Briggs dropped into our gym, and I didn't feel like I could lift the bar anymore. Like, I was exhausted. And she looked at me and said, you can lift the bar, and it's not going to move itself. So let's go. And she said that a little louder than I just did there, but it did. And I picked it up, and it went, and then it gave me a little bit of confidence to kind of keep moving. Okay, I can do this.
Yeah, that's it. And I think that's what Sam did there to you, was told you, hey, don't paint the wall. Right. Don't take your paintbrushes out and paint mum and dad's wall. Come and watch Ice Age on the couch with me. It was that. And that's if we're talking about that sort of circle we spoke about at the start between positive and negativity, there, Sam is creating an environment of success for you, and that success gains momentum. And then actually, initially, you might think, can I, Sam? But you know what? I don't dare say no to Sam. None of us really do. So I'm going to try. I'm going to try and lift the bar, right? And then you lift the bar and you find out, which we often do find out, is it's never as bad as our imagery or our self-talk allows us to think it will be. It's never that bad. It's never as heavy. It's never as bad. We have this sort of disaster, catastrophic symptom in us that wants everything to be worse than it actually is in reality. And you lift the bar and you actually find out, actually, I can do it. And that positivity that comes from that is a great example of being in an environment and around good people who drive you forwards and enhance that positive self-talk.
And after the workout, she followed it up with encouragement and positivity, and like just sitting on the couch, eating popcorn, watching Ice Age.
Yeah, you got the rewards, and I think you can live. I mean, I can feel now. You're still, next time you go to deadlifts and burpees, that moment will be something that sits with you. And when we talk about triggers, people often use triggers in the negative sense of the word, in that, okay, that's a trigger for me. That's going to send off my self-talk. But here you've got a real positive trigger. You've got something that actually triggers you into positive hormones and positive feelings, which you absolutely use as ammunition against any kind of the self-talk. It's really important.
Well, this has been awesome, Phil. As always, I think we could go on and on with these topics because they're so interesting. But we're going to end it here. And then next week, we're going to talk about decision-making that kind of feeds off of this. If you guys have anything that you wanted us to talk about, make sure you leave us a DM or a comment below, and make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notifier so you're the first to know when new episodes come out. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Clydesdale Media Mindset.